participant friends, today we are coming back to a particular field of education at the same time of science, which has special importance or significance for all categories of students, particularly in degree level. You see, in your technology paper, you are to study this area. In B.Ed level, it is very much important. In M.Ed level also, this area has special importance. And but you see, aspirants who are expecting to enter into the field of teaching by overcoming or by passing TET examination, this is one of the very important, units of discussion. Taxonomy of educational objectives. And friends, as a whole, you see, forgetting about all these specifications which I have mentioned already, you see, all categories of teachers are bound to know about the taxonomy of educational objectives for making the process of teaching very much successful. And let us start today. This is the first class of this unit. This is class number 1. This is slide number 1. And this class is on, taxonomy of educational objectives, which all of we are to know so much well. Particularly people involved in the sector of education are to know about the taxonomy of educational objectives. Here you have found cognitive, affective and psychomotor domains. These are the 3 specific domains of behavior which have been forwarded by Benjamin Bloom, the great latest or recent US psychologist. Cognitive behavior, affective behavior and psychomotor behavior. Particularly, we manifest 3 types of behaviors in behavioral area of each of us. We have cognitive area, we have affective area and we have psychomotor area. Friends, cognitive means how we cognize, means the way of thinking, the way of realization. Affective means the way of feeling, how we feel. And psychomotor means the application of human thinking as well as human feeling in practical field, which is very simply known as science, because science is nothing but it is the application of ideas and spirit and feelings in practical field for having result. So friends, we think, we feel and we do. Doing itself is the basic parameter which are inclusive in psychomotor domain. Let us see, the term taxonomy, first of all, we are to know so much well. And once we study this term, which is to be well understood by all who are involved in the sector of education, has been originated from the Greek term taxis and nomia. If it is asked in your TET examination, you see from which terms the term taxonomy has been originated, then you are to mention as Greek term taxis and nomia. So friends, taxonomy is such a term which has Greek origin, and the terms from which the term has been originated are taxis and nomia. Let us see the next slide. Here you see science of classification. For discussing about taxonomy of educational objectives in 1819, it was known as, taxonomy is the science of classification. This was the explanation during 1819. By saying about taxonomy of educational objectives, we mean about the science of classification of the objectives of the process of education. And then again, we find, you see, before this, in 1813, it was used in France as, the French term is taxonomy. Taxonomy, Taxonomie, taxonomy, which was used in 1813 there in France. On this term, you see, taxonomy has been coined irregularly from Greek. Taxis and nomia we have found, and here again taxis, which means about arrangement, and nomia, which mean about method. So friends, if it is asked in your examination, what is the meaning of the term taxis, then you are to write taxis means about arrangement. And what's the meaning of the term nomia? It means the method, means the way of arrangement, the method of arrangement of educational objectives, taxonomy of educational objectives by following the, you see, explanations of the terminologies, means the origin of the Greek terms. We find that it is the science of arrangement or arrangement of the educational objectives, or it is the science with the help of which we can arrange the educational objectives methodologically. Let us see the next slide. The Swedish who used the term first of all in the field of science, you are to know so much well. And once you go to the field of science, you will come to know about the Swedish botanist Carl Linnaeus. The Swedish botanist Carl Linnaeus in 1708, he was born in 1707 and died in 1778. Carl Linnaeus founded modern taxonomy in science, particularly in botany. Thus, the term taxis means arrangement and nomia means distribution or the method for the distribution of various objectives of the process of education. Let us see the next slide. The term is derived from the Greek taxis we have found again, and in you see there is another group of educationists who are of the opinion that the term is derived from Greek term taxis and not nomia but nomos. Taxis and nomos. And taxis means arrangement. Earlier also we found as arrangement, and nomia we found as method, but here it is nomos means law. This way, in brief, in understandable way, a taxonomy in brief is a way to classify words into hierarchical, means arranged in order of rank groups for practical realization in methodological way, in scientific way, in the practical situation, classroom situation maybe, or maybe in administrative situation. Let us see the next slide. Thus or this way, taxonomy, friends, means the branch of science concerned with classification of various objectives or classification of various materials in a methodological way, in lawful way. In other sense, it means a system of classifying things. And once we come to the field of education, this term is very much important for the classification of various objectives which are to be practically realized with the help of teaching or transacting various informations depending on different units of teaching for helping students to develop their behavioral pattern in the three domains, either in cognitive or in affective or in psychomotor. Let us see the next slide. You see things, we have found this. Thus, taxonomy means the branch of science concerned with classification. In other sense, it means a system of classifying things. And once we come back to the field of education, we mean about educational objectives. when the term taxonomy is used in the field of education, now absolutely come to the field of education, and when the term is used either in technology or in other areas in education, it means the process of systematic classification of educational objectives so as to, you see, practically realize the mission or the goal or the vision of the process of education. Let us see the next slide. Educational objectives, when we say as educational objectives, or by saying as educational objectives, we very simply mean about the goals or aims of the process of education. Let us see the next slide. Educational objectives, that is the goals or aims of the process of education, have special importance or significance for the educational administrators, planners, examiners, evaluators, let us see, teachers and all concerned people for the evaluation of the success level and causes of failure in some areas or the level of failure, so that in next time we can properly, you see, try to achieve these goals or objectives or the aims of the process of education without failure. Let us see the next slide. All concerned people are to scrutinize educational objectives for the assessment of performance level of students in different areas of education, and without doing this, we never can determine the success or failure level, maybe as an administrator, maybe as educational planner, maybe as educational evaluators, maybe as examination controller, maybe as teacher, whatever may be our position for becoming successful, we are to know about taxonomy of educational objectives so much well to achieve the objectives or the goals of the process of functioning. Let us see the next slide. There are three sorts of principles on which educational objectives or goals are based on. We find how many principles? Three. If it is asked to write in examination in short, in objective way, then there are three. Means how many? Three sorts of principles. How many principles? Three sorts of principles. Such principles are as, let us see, number one, educational principles, or the principles of education is number one. Number two is logical principles, number two, and number three is psychological principles, number three. Means these are the three basic principles. First one is educational principles or the principles of education. Second one is logical principles, and third one is psychological principles. You see, following which we try to achieve the goals or the aims of our exercise, either as an administrator, as a planner, as a policy maker, as a teacher, as an examiner, as an evaluator, whatever may be our position, we try to achieve everything else considering these three most important principles. And that's why, for understanding about the significance of all these three basic principles, we have to know so much well, and we have to understand so much well about the taxonomy of educational objectives. So thank you so much for today. The other things will be discussed in the coming classes. Thank you so much.